Welcome everyone to episode 27 of Raw Sport. My name is unparalleled. Another big one, Tones. How are you, buddy? How's things?
Yeah, another huge episode of Raw Sports Armor. I know we say this every week. We can't wait to get stuck into our next guest.
It's been an explosive couple of weeks in the world of boxing. We've broken some big news. We've caused a bit of controversy, but we love it, mate.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. Our guest today, a very special guest, great man, a man who's literally put it on the line, all on the line for Aussie boxing. Been around for a very long time, managed many fighters, been a lot behind the scenes. This guy here, don't worry, mate. He's in there. He gets very deep. He pulls a lot of moves. Not many people see him. The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Mike Altamura. How are you, buddy? How's things?
Yeah, good. Like I told you in the lead up, you must have a special place in my heart for me to have to wake up and do an interview at 9 in the morning. So I got a lot of respect, obviously, for both of you guys and your contributions to sport, both sport in general. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation. I don't know if this conversation is going to trend in some of those, I suppose, controversial directions that previous guests have. I've caught some snippets here and there. And some elements of what I'm going to say are going to surprise you. But at the end of the day, that's why you run programs like this. There's inside scoop, and we all love ice cream, and there's so many different flavors of ice cream. So it's about getting different perspectives and different thoughts on the sport. So I look forward to swapping some ideas.
Well, Mike, let's start at vanilla, and then we can ramp up to the chocolate.
Deal.
Hey, now, Mike, whereabouts are you? Where are you located this morning? I'm
in Melbourne. Yeah, so boring for once. I'm just home. Usually I have something, whether it's, I'm in Dubai, I'm in Kenya, I'm in Ecuador, wherever it may be. Usually there's some angle, but yeah, it's a little mundane at present. I am heading to China in 3 weeks, but yeah, for now, just bunkered down at home.
Beautiful.
Very, very nice. Mike, for those that don't know who you are and what you do, you just mentioned you travel a fair bit. Can you give us a bit of a background, mate?
Yes, I'll try and hit it with some stats. So it just kind of in a condensed format. So I've been managing fighters for 23 years. Kind of started in management by accident at 17 years of age. I actually began as a journalist at age 11 for the world of boxing. So I'm second generation in the sport. My father was a fighter and also a trainer during my upbringing. And basically at his insistence throughout, he always told me to stay out of the business of boxing. So I did the absolute opposite. And I launched when I was 17, and out of that kind of grew a page offering fighters an opportunity to advertise themselves, available for fights and so forth from all around the world. And then a few guys in the world asked me to manage their careers. So being an ignorant 17-year-old, I figured I'd give cracking along and been really trying to, it's been a journey though. I usually learned my trade and then been blessed, 10 world champs, work with the biggest scouted, including 3 for Top Rank. And yeah, when you look into the years, just exist in this business for more than a few years there's a sense of accomplishment in that. So to be able to, for over 20 years, I've been blessed, man. I work with so many gifted people throughout the years and continue to, and I still feel hungry. I still feel like I've got a lot I can contribute to and give to the sport.
Wow, you've definitely been a survivor for a few years.
He's bigger than a survivor. He's created pathways.
Many pathways, but I was getting there. So, Mike, you've inspired and created many, many careers, and you've been a man who's worked behind the scenes for a very, very, very long time. And I know for a fact you've helped make some of the biggest matchups in this country. So you've seen the sport go from period to period to period and transition throughout its last, let's say, as you said, the last 23 years. Is the sport in a healthy place right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's always easier to catch either way. Some people have nots, usually in a situation we'll see overwhelming. I always look at, one thing, my opinion is I've always been historic. So I try and look at, I take inspiration of things, like Bill James's work and Moneyball and the rest of it. And you can't articulate boxing in the same sense. You can't create a pie chart dictating who's going to be a world champion out of the amateurs without someone passing the eye test, because there's incalculable things in boxing, which is that boxing isn't over a season. It's one bad night and your career could be over. But there is things that you can look at historically. And I just look at, so we won't go back, say, the sport too far back, but let's look at the dawn of, say, premiers, which then evolved into Foxtel. And if you look at the contractor on the network was Bill Morty. Then it went from the evolution to then went from Fennick, got on to the Grange. From the Grange, then there was a trio of promoters on the network, and occasionally you'd have, like I know a couple of times with Billy Dibb's World Title Championships, we were granted at Angelo DiCarlo. Yeah, Brian Amatruda, Jamie Meyer had the dates on Fox Sports. Then from it kind of went a little bit open. Then it went Lonigan and it went No Limit, and now it's just No Limit. If you look at over that period, there's been a lot of promoters. I mean, in times when stockpile was blue, probably the high range boxing in terms of fighting, if you it was around was from 2002 to 2005. And I think the reason for that is we had a big influx of fighters that remained in our country out of the 2000 Olympics. So if you really look at it, you had the likes of Sakio Bika, you had Victor Chinyan. These are all guys that went on to win world championships, essentially under the umbrella of Australia because they were located here. Plus you had Danny Green, you had Mundine, you had the Asane brothers, you had Robbie Peden win a world championship in that time. It was a very strong time for the sport. You had Costa still at the tail end of his career. I think that if you look in between, there's lulls. Then we had, was it Billy Dibb and Daniel Gill as world champions? Then you still had Mundine around. Then Solomon come through, win the world championship. I think if you really look at Australian boxing now, and I know I'm taking a long course to get to this, but if you look at Australian boxing now, I mean, the events that have been delivered with Tim Tszyu headlining have been phenomenal. In terms of the atmosphere, in terms of the flow-on opportunity come out of those events, I think it's been phenomenal. I know that there hasn't been a lot of other depth on TV, and what I love to see is a rival network outside of, obviously Fox Sports, or Foxtel, I should say, at least put up 4 to 6 dates a year. Whereas on Stan, all we've really seen is one-off rugby player pay-per-views. Don't have much bearing on building and developing the grassroots level of the sport. And I think that, there's zone some here or there, but there's just nothing consistent from another network. And I think that if you look at boxing around the world, I think boxing globally excels when you have different outfits on different networks, granted opportunities to fighters, which then, at least, I know you guys have talked about, boxing, that it generally works throughout history. I know in the States, HBO, for a period of time, HBO was granting dates by the fight card. ABC Sports back in the 70s, 80s was granting by the fight card. But other networks in those times, ESPN from 81 to about 94, 95 was exclusive to Top Rank. Then they opened up and started granting it by fight card to independent promoters or allocating different dates. But generally, networks get gridlocked and locked into one promoter. And that's why I think the question out here shouldn't be, we have a monopoly and is it unhealthy for boxing? It should be, can there be other alternatives? Generate committing more to them, whatever it may be, alternative, which then gives different routes. Fighters will find their way. You know, like with that guys that are on Fox Sports or from nothing really built out of that to get them to where they to, and then others that have fought off TV pretty much all did made it where they needed to. The Loney brothers are a good example of that. They were on TV, but they both to win world championships. I can tell you with TJ Doney, I managed him like live TV 0. He fought on delay maybe 4 or 5 times. He fought on 0 times on live TV in Australia before going on to win the world championship in Japan. So there is routes regardless, but in terms of the sport in general, look, I think we're in a pretty good spot. We've got some solid talent coming through. I think that promoters out in this country and managers have now figured out how to manipulate the rankings and how to get guys in prominent positions to world championship fights to build the attention around them, and that's a positive thing for the sport here as well.
Absolutely. What would you say to the naysayers or those that say that limiting talent into a certain ecosystem and isolating the rest is killing the sport?
Yeah, well, it's like I said, Giselle, I think that we can all find our own paths and our own routes. I think that I know you're good friends with Billy Hussein, right? And me and Bill used to always talk about with fighters' paths. Sometimes you got to find your way around the storm. If it's too shaky and uncertain, you find the way. You sit patient, you find your way around the storm. So that might be that you just pick up your opportunities where they may be. Maybe look at Paulo Acuso. Maybe something like a Stan Sport date comes up and you get a chance to headline or co-headline that, and you take that opportunity. Then you see, for example, a DAZN card's coming up. You see maybe a Top Rank's going to come out here and chance their arm. You take that opportunity. I think that there's always ways in the system to find your way forward. And although obviously it would be good to see an alternative option where there was more of a spread of the kind of talent we get to see on TV, I just think that whether you're a promoter, manager, trainer, whatever it may be, your goals for the fighters should remain pretty consistent, whether on TV or not. The only time you should really run into trouble is when it just gets too expensive at the high end. Like if you're trying to do like a major heavyweight fight and you've got no TV, obviously it's impossible. But there's always might be able somebody to here or there and find different routes through. So I think that creating how you plot your fire and get proactive. A lot of people in the game sit back and get somewhat bitter and get frustrated at the system in play, and that never helps the situation. I'm not saying that like for example that No Limit are doing everything perfect on their side of the fence, because no one ever is. But you have to respect the platform they have, and you take your opportunities when they work within their frameworks, and if they don't, an alternative option.
Mike, does No Limit and by extension Fox Sports, Foxtel, Main Event, do they have a monopoly on the sport at the moment?
No. They'd only have a monopoly on the sport if fighters had no option to sign elsewhere or to take opportunity elsewhere. And look at look at the system of fighters we have. So if you want to go off the top five, top five fighters, top of my head in Australia would be Opataya. He's signed to DAZN. I'd have him number one. Then I'd have Tim Tszyu number two. He's with No Limit. I'd have Jason Maloney number three. He's with Top Rank, so he's not in their system, and he's fighting January 13. His fight's going to be on Main Event. Granted, it's from Canada, but that'll be seen on Main Event, I figure. Then you look beyond that. Kambosos is independent. He's Lou DiBella, so he's not with No Limit. Then depends on how you round out the top five. You maybe sneak Goodman in there or Andrew Maloney, probably Goodman. Goodman is aligned with No Limit as well. So you could only really argue a monopoly if the guys at the high end of the equation are forced into needing to sign with them in order to receive some kind of spotlight. Whereas I think that it's only if you look at it from that perspective, from what the network's decision is. But if you look at the history of the network, people lie, but never does. So if you look at the history of the network, when Fox Sports, or by proxy Premier, Galaxy, etc., launched, Bill Morty had an exclusivity on the Fox Sports dates. Thereafter was Jeff Fennick. Then they got outsourced to Kieran O'Connor and other promoters in that regards too. So if you look at it in that sense, it's always been, there's times it's opened up, but there's always been limitations in terms of who's actually in charge and who's allocating the dates. And that's why, like I said, what I would love to see is just an alternative option for fighters to be able to fight, elsewhere and have some sense of a TV platform behind them as well.
Yeah. So that being said, we had two big-time Australian promoters who you're very well aware of, in Brian Armatruda, based in Melbourne, and Angelo Di Carlo, based in Brisbane. They had some queries on how they were going to get their fighters and shows on mainstream television and get the publicity into the mainstream newspapers to therefore promote their fighters. And they have been forced to, for the betterment of the sport, hopefully, to now meet with Stan, Channel 9 and Channel 7, as you say, about an alternative platform for their fighters.
Yeah, and that's what, situations can do, is if you're not happy with the status quo, it always, can put you in play to have to chase alternative options. You either evolve or dissolve, as they say. And sorry, go on. Yeah, so obviously I'm in a different position to them because, although I have promoted my own shows, I'm more on the management and the advisory side of the sport. So I can adapt to different parties. Whereas I know with maybe the business model they're structuring, the last little bit of a rise for their fighters, and it's not just the financial of the TV investment, but like you said, the media cooperation and the rest of it, the last little bit they need is just that TV outlet or that TV platform. But that's the way the industry swings, and they're both clever people in the sport, and I'm sure that if they're hungry and they desire it and they keep it in their time, the opportunity will swing back their way. Yeah, I'm probably in the sport that I don't just see it all as doom and gloom, and I don't see it as all glorious. I just see it that there's alternative options that you can look to seek to find in order to keep your fighters active.
Very interesting. Mike, let's look at the world of boxing as a whole. Do the American promoters, Top Rank, PBC, I'll say Golden Boy, he's still a bit relevant because, it's just Oscar De La Hoya, barely. Is there appetite for Australian boxing? Do they look to this side of the world to do more?
There's more appetite than there was previously. Yeah, I think it's still untested with some of the promoters abroad. I think that when you look at the platform, we're still a small country, so not everyone's going to be able to grow and become a significant name on pay-per-view in this market. But I do think that you've seen with Top Rank and the Maloney brothers, you see it with Matchroom and Jai Opataya and with Justice Hooney. If fighters are at and even with Stevie Spark, if fighters are at and Liam Paro and Dempsey McKean, also with them, if fighters are at a level or they see a way that they work, they will take a chance. I can tell you early days during my management journey here, unless you really got to before in the world, or you're an anomaly, maybe you're a whitehead, like international promoters just weren't looking at Australian fighters other than perceiving them as cannon fodder. That was really the way it was. There was a few situations that were a bit different. I know that, for example, Hasi Hussain was, picked up a few fights in the UK with Frank Warren. And that was, I know that they were high on him, but it was also Jeff Fennick's relationship working with Warren in those times. But, like those opportunities used to be few and far between. Whereas now, I guess probably modern technology brings things forward too. The world's a lot smaller when it comes to being a talent on the other side of the world and looking to get signed. So I think that, if you're a young fighter in this country, my advice will always be to focus on the bigger picture, focus on your overall development. Don't worry about, being on TV next week and forcing the wrong situation or feeling that that's where you need to be. Just look at how you can get closer to what your end goal is. So if your goal is to be a world champion, how do you take those steps, actually learn your trade and build towards? Somebody will come along and sign you if it's not someone within.
Absolutely. Take us on these journeys that you travel the world for, looking for upcoming talent. What do you look for, Mike, when you go out into Congo and these African countries and places that many of us have never even thought to go to? What are you looking for? What kind of talent are you looking for? What do you see in a fighter that says to you, he's the real deal. I need him and I want him?
Well, that's evolved a lot over the years. I think now number one on the list, which wouldn't back his attitude. I think that, when you're younger, you get enthused by the raw talent and flags, or you think you can fix them. Whereas I think now it's attitude. Yeah. And what I look at is, you mentioned Africa. What I see within Africa, and it's with a lot of developing countries, is that, you've got, I'll give you two examples of systems. So you've got the UK amateur system where you get to top 3 or 4 in the country, and you're in a situation where you're receiving funding, you're receiving housing. You go to train in Sheffield where there's 5 boxing rings in the one complex. There's recovery. There's an indoor running track. There's all your equipment, all your gloves, all your food, all your nutrition. Everything's provided to you. Regular competition.
Wow.
Then you go to somewhere like Uganda or Mozambique or some of these places, and you see kids that don't even have a kit. Their national team might look at Kenya a few years ago. The national team received 5 lots of tracksuits for each of the Olympians, and they only give them 1 each, and the rest were sold. The kids don't have. They're on the national team, the top 10 in the world as amateurs. They don't have a brand new pair of gloves to wear to spar, and they don't have a protector they own. They don't have a head guard they own that's from the last decade. It's just a hand-me-down from the gym. So when you look at the lack of resources, you look at these guys are excelling in countries where their gym might not have a boxing ring. They don't have an even floor to skip on. And you see the hunger that festers out of that atmosphere, and you just figure, if I give this kid all of that, so if I'm able to either to provide it at home or I relocate him and give him all of that, there's considerable improvement within that athlete. Whereas someone in a different system, whether UK, Ukraine, Russia, these places that put hundreds of thousands of dollars into fighters' developments, Kazakhstan, basically what you order is what you get. So what you see in the amateurs is what you're going to get in the pros. But I always just try and look at the diamonds in the rough. So, specific, you got to know how to read the record, read the performance, and just try and do some calculations and figure what improvement it may be in the fight or scouting in general. I mean, we all get it wrong. I mean, I was one of those that thought that, I remember because I collaborated with Top Rank on the 2012 Olympics, and they had 3 significant signings: Felix Verdejo, Oscar Valdez, and Jose Ramirez. And the one signing that everybody thought was an absolute lock to be world champion was Felix
Verdejo. Yeah, Verdejo was a disappointment.
Yeah, he failed in his pro career, and now he's just been handed a life sentence for homicide. So it's not, like even someone that looked like an absolute sure thing isn't always a sure thing. But the odds will fall in your favor if you do your due diligence and you put the work in. So the main thing is just put in the work in and back in your instincts. But like I said at the start, I think that as times evolved, what I rate and respect more than anything is character. We're going to always back ourselves to have a certain sense of liking what we see and having a judgment call on the boxing ability, but the character needs to match the capabilities.
Absolutely. And Verdejo was definitely one of those stories where I remember watching him, I thought, wow, this guy is a freak of nature. And then he just got caught up. It's not hard, mate. You come through these amateur ranks, and I think which country was he? Brazilian? No, he was
Puerto Rican.
He's Puerto Rican. Yeah, he came through, and then he got all the shine of America, Top Rank, and the networks, and literally there was a lot of attention on him, and he just fell away. Poor thing. We'll keep going. All right. Let's move into the way the system of development in Australia is today, and how much you believe boxing leaving the Olympics is going to impact the sport. Now we'll start with the Australian system first, then we'll go into the whole Olympic saga and why you think that actually occurred, because I'm sure you've got some inside scoop on on what's happened.
Yeah, well, I think that look, boxing in Australia is always going to be challenging because we don't have significant funding compared to other Western countries. Boxing's not a priority sport according to our government. When funding's allocated, other countries might have, and I'm just creating numbers here, but you might have a UK that has, say, $3 million allocated foreign trips and development, and the rest of it a year. Australia, so it's hard to compete when you count the experience into your youth development squads, and it's only, say, for major championships. I think that if you look at boxing historically, what evolves fighters quick in the amateurs is when they get to a certain level, say if they're dominant domestically, they need to be able to compete. I feel that a lot of if you look at even a lot of our pre-Olympic camps throughout the years, it's there might be 2 lead-up tournaments, then pretty much it, and lose a lot of the development on that side of the fence. I do think that we're pretty decent amateurs given the size of our country, and also, like I said, the lack of really recognition for amateur boxers we have out here, but not seeing scores of Australian medalists. Hopefully, Garside's medal at the Olympics just helped to kind of, push a few more funders and investment and so forth in the programs. We see more support. These medals, major global championships, are going to be few and far between unless we're actually able to put the right experience into the young fighters' hands.
Absolutely. And one of the things that's really interesting about amateur boxing is these young guys or girls train with their trainer for many, many years.
Yeah.
Then the most important part of their of their careers is the actual fight nights and the tournaments. Sorry, not fight nights, the actual major tournaments. And guess what? Their trainers are not there. They got these guys who the AIS is put in as, or Boxing Australia puts in as the coaches, and it just doesn't make any sense. Like, what is with that? Like, why is that the case? I mean, if the fighter, if I've taken somebody from here all the way to here, I mean, why would you not have that person in his corner? He knows his fighter better than anyone. Like, how am I going to take instructions from someone who doesn't know me from a bar of soap? No matter how much video you watch, you don't know me as a person. You don't know what gets me going, what pushes me, what my weaknesses, what my strengths are. That is the most absurd thing ever. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately that's the way it's always operated with national camps. Where I can say that we are improving is that we're having slightly longer lead-ins and times with the national coach and in the national system for fighters. So I'm not saying that it creates a detachment from the Boxers Club, but the boxers given at least a bit more time to adjust and adapt to what the expectations might be of the national leadership, and to understand from things like the verbiage, the signals, the calls, because everyone's language with you is different. And boxing is not as simple as throw this punch, throw this. It's corner, and in the gym is on communication. So I do think that we're improving when it comes to the systems that have been put in place in the national squad. But yeah, like you said, if someone's had, say, 60 fights with one coach, and then they have to go away twice a year on a national squad and do 2 tournaments without their coach and national leadership. I mean, their coach can still remain video call, give, I guess, a system you have to learn to develop and adjust into.
Interesting. How do you see the omission of boxing from the Olympics impacting the sport?
Oh, look, it sucks. I mean, that's really changed. I remember it would have been the 2009 World Championships. So I was over there in Milan, and they were handing out these sheets for something called of boxing, and telling fighters, "Oh, just come, it would be a great opportunity for you." And the amateur boxers that are just seeing dollar signs and just signing for this competition weren't aware that at that time, depending on how the commissions perceived these contests, those contests could count on your professional record. So it was under professional rules, 5 3-minute rounds. And I've always just looked at it. When you struggle to differentiate the rules or the structures between what amateur boxing is and pro boxing is, and you muddy the waters, you take away the innocence and the luster of what the amateur system is supposed to be. You know, we all knew, you know, back in the 80s, back in the 90s, that, you know, Oscar De La Hoya comes out of the 92 Olympics, wins a gold medal. He's going to be a superstar pro signing. That's going to be a guy that, you know, everyone's going to want to chase to have on their books. And it's got huge impact in terms of his professional. It's a multi-million signing, whereas now you got guys going back and forth. I mean, look at Bakhtiar Jalilov. Like, he was 11-0 when he went back and won the Olympic gold medalist in Tokyo. You know, like, so what allure is there to sign him as a heavyweight Olympic gold medalist when he's already 11-0 and signed to Lou DiBella at the time? You know, I think, I think that the problem there is that there's been so much muddying of the waters between amateur and pro, and how the system works. And then also, I know IBA's trying to make a lot of changes now, but it's in a very, very rough spot at present. Yeah. You're back, Ahmed.
Sorry, boys. For some weird reason, it just absolutely cut out. Internet's been it's been a bit painful today. So,
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
saying, so with the IBA, like IBA is, they're currently in charge of the amateur worlds and so forth. They are some changes, and there's more transparency with how they're operating things. There's been less poor recent, world championships. A lot of them been and done over really the 2012 and the 2016 Olympics. I'll send you. I don't want to botch the name of the report, but I don't know, Ahmed, if you've ever read the report. Oh, let me Google it. But there was Ireland reports like that into corruption, and they basically laid out how IBA officials, referees, judges played a significant role in one screw up with Vladimir Nikitin, but also manipulating the results in other fights. So basically, if the lead judge had two other judges on side with him in a fight to corrupt an outcome, then they didn't need to corrupt the referee or the other two officials. They'd already found the way to adjust the result. And
wow.
Like so, I'll bring up the name. Like when things that are out there, you then when the IOC come down and say, you know what, we're inconclusive about boxing standing at in the future. Like, I'm not saying that the Olympics form of competition, because there's been endless corruption scandals. When it's just that out there in the open, that people being deprived, where deals are being made, you go read these reports, are donating, two Olympic medals. And then you look at, say, a poor kid from Australia who doesn't come in that system, that goes there and fights their heart out and gets shafted, and you wonder why other countries struggle. It's like, see boxing at the Olympics, if that's what it's going to be. But the shame is, if it's not at the Olympics, then it kind of a gauge in how we scout talent, because the Olympics has always been a benchmark, even if it's not the Olympics per se. But you look at the qualifiers, you look at the national trials, and that usually gives you a bit of a lead in. If someone's an Olympic medalist, and then you discover someone that had knocked them out 7 months earlier but injured their ankle and missed the trials and so forth, then they come on your radar when you're looking at signing them. So the biggest impact that I see in my world is that it changes the way that we perceive scouting talent.
Absolutely. And Mike, are boxers better off being amateurs and fighting in the Olympics and then moving to pro, or do we only see the cream of the crop go straight into professional boxing?
It's a good question. I think that's a limited talent pool that make it through to anything significant in the amateurs. But I think that you're better to get your experience there. If you can find a pathway to an Olympics and then find the way to be signed, you do adjust your value on the market. Look at even, I look at the system of what we have now. So if you really look at the top tier fighters in our system, I know Tim had 30 odd amateur fights or so. Tim Zhu,
yep.
Yeah, he lost to Daniel Lewis at the trials. So Daniel Lewis then eventually would make it through to the Olympics. But you look at the Maloneys, both seasoned amateurs internationally. Jai Opataya was an Olympian, very seasoned amateur. You just look at, Kambosos had a ton of amateur fights, but was struggling to win national titles when he turned over. But
Kostya
Zhu, one of the best amateurs, probably of the last 40, 50 years. Yep. If you look at kind of how dominant he was in his last couple of years, when he opted to turn pro and base in Australia rather than go back to the 92 Olympics, but you look at kind of the best talent in the game, they've usually at time at least, committed to that system. there's very few fighters you see that have under 30, 40 amateur fights that actually accomplish anything of significance in the pro ranks. It's extremely rare.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'd advise anyone younger, even if you saw that, go and get.
Yeah, well, we saw Jeff Fennick. He was robbed at the Olympics, and
I got that report up.
And then Ahmed, even if we turn to the United States, Roy Jones Jr., he was robbed as well.
So was Floyd, apparently.
And
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Floyd definitely was. Yeah. Fennick was an anomaly because Fennick didn't have that many amateur fights. You know, he condensed so much in such a short period, and then it's amazing what he went on to achieve as a professional. I know he's obviously Olympian, and you know he felt he was shortchanged, which most people do at the 84 games. But it's amazing what Fennick achieved in about a 3 to 4 year period from walking into a boxing gym to then rising to being the IBF World Champion.
Yeah, and became a legend of the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I did get I got that report up, so it's called the McLaren report. I knew I was close, but you know, like, so I mean, here's like a key part, right? So I'll just read this bit for you, so you can see when people hear, "Oh, boxing's not going to be in the Olympics," they don't understand why, right? So here's a key part. McLaren found that there existed a culture of favors, particularly amongst the post-Soviet countries, with Azerbaijan giving amateur boxing's governing body, AIBA, an investment loan of $10 million, with the ex-bouts will be manipulated in their favor for medals at London 2012. So now you go look at London 2012. Jaya Bataya fights the world number 2 from Azerbaijan in his opening bout and loses a close decision. You have to weigh up, was it ever going to be officiated or not? And
Very
and
interesting.
That's why if you go and look into, you know, studies like this, then it changes your perspective of why things are happening, and you can see why the IOC would be apprehensive to have boxing long term until they're absolutely assured and certain that it's clean.
Well, I think that's never going to be the case, buddy. We were talking to Jeff Fennick about judges going out to dinners and ending up with young ladies at their hotel rooms, and anyway, it's just that side of the sport, unfortunately. It's just how it is, mate.
Yeah. When TJ had his world title in Thailand, a judge that scored against us ended up with young ladies because there's no fucking way someone in that mind could score against them.
Yeah, but Mike, this is why people are sick of boxing, because of the corruption in sport.
Unfortunately, it happens.
Sorry, mate, you just cut out there.
Yeah.
Mike, can you hear us?
Yeah. It's but boxing's always been red light restricted sport. So yeah, we'll do our part, but it's going to be impossible to clean everything up.
That internet seems to be playing up, Ahmed.
Yeah, he's had a bad run.
Well, and it's a pity, because I gather his answer to that was actually quite insightful, because boxing's decision-making processes with some of these bouts has actually been a fillip for the UFC. The UFC, I think, is almost too hard to rig, and that's why people find it such a more pure sport, because there's no disappointment in terms of corruption, in terms of judges being paid off.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, are you there with us, mate? Just to make sure if he is or isn't, because if not, we can bring him back in. Yeah, he's not. I don't think he's hearing us. But anyway, yeah. I mean, this is a conversation we've had over and over again, and what's going to continue to happen is we're going to see the UFC continue to rise time and time again until this is all cleaned up. Because if it doesn't, boxing will continue to suffer. Welcome back, Mike. Sorry, mate, we lost you there.
Yeah, I could hear you guys, but you couldn't hear me. So,
Yeah.
Like,
Did you hear?
I was saying before, yeah, I think, look, boxing's always been the red light district of professional sports. So it's, that's been hundreds of years. So it's hard to, I'm not using that as a justification, but it's hard to weed out all of the things that we perceive as being corrupt or that are corruptible, because the judging system can't be fixed ever.
No, I disagree. I think it can.
But what do you adjust? Because it's different perspectives, it's different vantage points. There's fights you watch on TV that looks so different to what it looks from one judge who only has one view of the fight. You might have a fight that's 75% of the action takes place in a corner on the opposite side of the ring. The fighters have their back to the judge, and the judge is only seeing what they see from their vantage point. And so I've seen it at times where people will say, "Oh, that judge must have been corrupt. They must have leaned this way." And I know the people involved, and I know that it's just human error. It's not that it was anything with malice or with preconceived content or that they were paid off or anything of that nature. I think that we can do our part, or we can all do our part to better the sport, but I don't think that it can ever be completely turned, because, like I said, a lot of people still don't quite comprehend what the scoring system is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you've got to incentivize boxers then to go for a TKO or a knockout, because unless it's cut and dried, too many people walk away having differing opinions, and one says, well, this person should have won or the opposition should have won. It should be a clean-cut result.
I know, but then you, like I said at the start of the program, flavors of ice cream. You're asking someone that's a straight vanilla to be a lemon gelato.
It's different. It's different to I think where Tony's coming from is everyone, UFC, excitement, blah, blah. Boxing is a different science, mate. It's a different sport altogether. I mean, everybody loves to see a knockout, but there's also the appreciation of the science, because those that understand the sport, there's some fights that you look and you think, wow, that is amazing.
Okay, Ahmed, let's take Devin Haney versus Kambosos. Devin Haney was jab, jab, defend, and people were bored with it. I mean, it was technically a great fight, but people were bored with it because it was too simplistic. People want to be entertained, not see the sweet science.
Well, I think that's a double-edged sword, because what you end up with then is you dissolve the talent and the true art dies out. So you have to be very careful where you have a balance of entertainment and you keep the sweet science. Like, for example, Alvarez, Canelo Alvarez and Triple G, when they fought, they were two of the most harshest, ruthless, violent fights you will ever see. They were hard fights. I reckon they aged each one of them 5 years minimum.
It was a great fight.
Correct. But boxing's different. You got to understand, underneath that glove, right, is a piece of plaster stuck on that hand. When every time you're getting hit with hard, rock solid plaster. It's not 4-ounce gloves and it's good night. It's a different sport. You're getting hit over and over and over and over. That's why there's more brain damage in it, because it's a lot more vicious than what people think it is. So you have to, and it's a longer sport. You got 12 rounds, 10 rounds. Majority of the championship fights are 12 rounds.
That's what they train for. That's what's called sparring.
36 minutes of intense action. The UFC maximum 25 minutes. A lot of them end in three rounds. But anyway, what we're trying to say is they're two different sports. You're always going to have the bangers that really, make the sport really exciting and bring the fan base. But you're also going to have the people who are artists. You know what I mean? They're the ones that finesse things, love to move around.
Well, like Floyd Mayweather.
And put their talent on display. Yeah. Why did people watch Floyd? They watched him because they wanted him to lose, not because they were expecting knockouts, right? But I've watched him in real time. In 2014, I was there when he fought Maidana the second time. This guy, I can't explain to you. This guy was unbelievable in his movement. He was that well-oiled of a machine that my brain could not comprehend his movement and the way his feet always literally like he's walking on water. Now that needs to be appreciated within its own. Yes, the regular fan needs to be entertained, but also the hardcore fans have to stick around too. If you lose that, you'll lose the hardcore fans, which is a huge base. Then you'll only end up with these regular fans who are coming around to watch a knockout. And that's a recipe for disaster. What the problem has been is not the lack of entertainment from knockout, it's been the mismatching. It's been the matchmakers have mismatched for many, many years, padding records in recent history. Now let's go back to the 70s, right? Go back to the 70s and the 80s. Purest form of boxing, entertainment, skill, whatever you want was on display because the matchmaking was a lot more solid. And the judges will always be the judges. But if the matchmaking's right, it changes the ballgame, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Tony?
Yeah. Well, I just want more entertaining boxing, that's all.
Look, No Limit's doing a good job, honestly. No Limit, the events that they're putting on are amazing, mate. Like let's be honest, it's almost UFC. Like you got the entertainment.
Yeah, because they put on a great event.
Yes, correct. But that's what's lacking. It's the event. The production of the event can go a long way into bringing in the consumer and making him feel like he's part of a big party.
Yeah,
and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, but instead of all these promotions these days of a big title fight and then having 6 or 7 undercards, limit the amount of undercards. Make it an exclusive event so that you have 3 or 4 undercards and make the main bout a 5th, so it doesn't go into midnight every Wednesday night.
Yeah, but that's you got to understand those undercards are the pathway for the upcoming talent to be discovered.
Make it more exclusive and then boost the money.
Then you kill that exposure.
No, you just have a grade like a Premier Football, Ahmed. Ahmed, are you having a headache because you don't like what I'm saying?
I think it depends. I agree with what Tony's saying, but only for places like Saudi Arabia.
Exactly.
For places like Saudi, I thought that that Ngannou and Fury event was unbearable to watch in terms of the delays and the time between bouts. But when you have that kind of budget, why can't you just have 4 fights, make them all elite fights, and just go back to back to back to back and put on the best show in the world for 3.5 hours? I agree with you on that. I think that when we're, say, even you look at I don't know if you guys watched the Top Rank show yesterday.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
that was a long event. I watched it from start to finish. But when you look at the layers in that event, they're trying to develop talent. They're trying to hit different target markets. They're trying to meet ESPN's requirement for content.
Quota, yeah.
So you can see all the boxes that they're ticking, and I thought it was a pretty good show overall. So I thought that they probably do it as well as anyone. But it's hard because sometimes you're trying to develop talent for the next show. Then you're trying to put on some good local sellers to build interest there. Then you're trying to put on something that, like you look at, say, No Limit. I know they've gone very hardline trying to build the profile of Sam Goodman. So they're trying to get Goodman to a position where maybe he can stand alone and headline pay-per-views himself, where it's going to be challenging because not everyone has the style or the personality to really headline and carry that platform. But you can see the reason why people are doing certain things or trialing certain things, whether you agree with it or not. I think that when it's just dead time on nothing, you just feel like you're being occupied for no reason. I think that's when it's correct to make a stand. Like I'll say it straight out. I used to struggle with the mundane show. You know, bring your own in, or bring your own Thai opponent, or that. I used to struggle through 7 hours of that. As someone in the industry, I can watch it and just be, yeah, it is what it is. But taking that step back and looking at it through the lens of a fan, you shouldn't have to sit through 7 hours of that before you get to your treat, which is the main event.
100%. If the 4 fights on the main card are solid, people can excuse the first couple of the first 3-4 because they know that as soon as the main card starts, they're getting action, and that's where in the past, because they pay so much for the main event, the money that trickles down is bare minimal. It's literally dust. Like there's not much left, and it just, the rest of the card suffers because if you're paying a Pacquiao 20 million, right, and then who do you think they're going to put on as their co-main? Some star that they want to develop, that they want the world to know, and then the 2 before that, if you get the Fijians, you're lucky. It's just how it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, true.
But that's been the game for a long time. I think moving forward, it will change. It can change. There's some companies coming through now that are looking to make a real change. I won't elaborate much on that, but I think, Mike, as a whole, how do you see the sport as a whole now globally?
Yeah, it's in an interesting state. We all have different ways of thinking. You know, like I look at different markets. Like if you look at from an insider's perspective, Japan right now is the most competitive it's been in a long time in terms of the high-end promoters and what they're trying to do in that country, and it's elevating the game there. Whereas there's other countries, you look at Germany's in a lull. Germany's in a very much a downward period of the sport.
Yeah.
UK's pretty healthy. I think in the US, we're all intrigued by what's going to happen with PBC next year. You know, the latest rumor is that could be close to locking something in with Netflix. We've heard Amazon.
A trial.
Yeah, we've heard
Jake
Amazon.
Paul.
We've heard Netflix. Yeah. So, I mean, the one thing we know is if you're a company, you look at PBC, they have Tank Davis, they've got Crawford, they've got Canelo. They're going to land the platform. Guaranteed, they're going to land the platform.
But they've been one of the biggest culprits of that padding system.
Oh, yeah, look, but I was a beneficiary of it when they called me for some overpaid opponents back in 2014, 2015. You know, and but by the way, a fighter can never get overpaid, but I mean overpaid in terms of what the scale was for the industry at that time. But
the EBA.
But the thing is, like, I think the game is now because there's a good spread of talent around. I think that's when you see markets down. There's been times when, you know, UK has been really down. Then you see a bit of a low in Japan. Whereas now I think that we've got stars in a lot of places around the world, which is great. Boxing when it's a reflection of being a global sport. In the United States, I think, and on this lately, have to be more proactive in making the biggest fights.
Hey, Mike, can you give us a quick insight into what?
No reason.
Sorry, go on.
It's a bit choppy there.
Who's got Jim's mowing in the background?
The whole neighbourhood, but you know.
Mike, what I was going to ask quickly, can you give us a quick breakdown of, say, what the top 3 boxers would earn in this country per fight?
I'm not going to go into too much of those.
Well, you don't have to name them, but you could say the top 3 and the bottom 2.
I think it's easy to work out who the top 3 paid are, though.
Yeah, but what would they be earning per fight, though?
Well, you got Tim Tszyu, obviously would be, I'd say him, Kambosos, top of the tree. I mean, what Kambosos earned for the Haney fights and that is outrageous. You know, outrageous in terms of where he was at prior. But look, no one's making Floyd kind of money out here. But you know, Tim would be.
Are they making 7 figures?
Yeah, Tim would be there now. Very, very low 7 figures, but yeah, Tim would be over the million mark. Probably somewhere between the 1.5 to the 2 mark, I'd say.
And what would a Maloney be getting?
That's when he told, yeah.
No, but I sort of ballpark. You don't have to tell us specifically.
Look, I would, again, just working off of what those weights are, you know, anyone 50. The one thing I don't do with my colleagues in the game is press get paid or what they get paid. You know, like I'll do my best to kind of guesswork it and that, but you know that's their business. The same way when they ask me the same questions, I tell them that's our business. So, but yeah, something like that. So you can see that.
Yeah, no, I understand that. You know,
Tim, if you look at him, would be right up there. You know, and I think that, you know, Kambosos obviously for a few fights was beyond everyone for a few fights.
Yeah, no, of course. But in terms of if we're going to incentivize and bring through the kids of tomorrow, they want fame, they want to be on TV, and they want money. So that's why I'm asking, you know, can we seduce these kids to come up through the ranks because there's going to be good money involved?
Yeah, but it's not an easy path in this part of the world. You got to look at it. The visibility of the sport isn't high in general. I think that Fox have done a better job with the shoulder programming they produced the last couple of years. You know, like I was just flicking through the TV yesterday, and there was, you know, 30 minutes in Nikita Tszyu highlights before the fights, before the top ranked fight started, and that's something that we wouldn't see years ago, despite, you know, the company owning all of that footage, and that might be done on the profile side. But yeah, look, I think that fighters are a different breed of people. In terms of, you know, they're from a different side of the track. So guys that are turning to change their life in some way, regardless. But I think if you look at the current landscape of the sport out here, and you see how many prominent fighters we have on Fox, whether it's on the Zone, guys world title shots, I think that there's enough there to get you inspired to want to turn professional.
Also, another thing is you're not going to get private school kids becoming fighters, mate. It's very low from the lower eco socio class that they actually become fighters, because you never become a fighter if you don't have to, because it's a very, very hard sport. But anyway, I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure, Mike. I mean, we can talk to you for days, literally. You've been awesome. We've had a couple of hiccups with our online internet streaming, but they're the risk we take streaming. But Mike, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Would you like to leave us with some parting words?
Thank you, guys. Just appreciate two are doing for the sport, just kind of generating these different talking points and not just asking superficial questions. I think that, you know, a couple of the questions really made me straighten up in my chair and just really contemplate and think about them. And I think that that's the best way you can actually affect positive discussions and positive change over time as well. So I appreciate the chance to come and talk to you guys today, and look forward to picking up the conversation at some point down the track.
Well, good luck in the future, Mike. Thanks for joining us on Raw Sports.
Thank
All
you.
right, everyone. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Tony. We'll catch you all next week.